Howdy, this is Frivolous Tax TV. I'm Sean Kennefick, an enrolled agent and customer service representative here at Frivolous Tax. This video is part of a complete continuing education course available at our website, www.frivoloustax.com. In this video, we're going to talk about frivolous tax arguments, the kind that get you in hot water with the IRS. There are many people who believe that we shouldn't have to pay income tax, and they resist doing so, sometimes legally and sometimes illegally. As a tax practitioner, you need to be able to recognize illegal tax resistance because you might be held responsible if you advise your clients incorrectly or sign returns that are designed to evade taxes. First, we'll talk about the legal methods of resisting compulsory tax. Then we'll talk about the illegal ones. Legal, you ask? There are legal ways to show resistance or even pay less taxes? You betcha! But you're going to be disappointed if you think that the answers aren't obvious. The easiest way to pay less taxes is to live simply and earn less income. I don't mean to underreport it, I mean to actually do nothing and not make money. The less money you make, the less taxes you pay. And it is a 100% legal way to not pay taxes. See, I told you it'd be obvious. There are some other legal ways that you or your clients can pay less taxes or show resistance to our current tax paradigm. One of them is tax avoidance, which is not quite the same thing as tax evasion. Tax avoidance is the use of the current tax system to your own advantage in order to reduce the amount of tax that you owe. For instance, you might lobby your congressman to create a tax loophole for your industry, or you might take advantage of credits or deductions that are tailored to your specific situation. People in Arizona might benefit from a solar credit more than people in Alaska would. That doesn't mean that the people in Arizona are doing anything wrong by exploiting the solar credit and paying less taxes. Tax sheltering is a similar method of tax avoidance. In North America, a tax shelter is generally defined as any method that recovers more than $1 in tax for every dollar spent within 4 years. Or you might legally use a tax haven outside the United States, which allows you to pay less taxes. Tax shelters and havens are sophisticated ways of avoiding tax, so be very careful in your advice and use of them. Today's shelters can sometimes be tomorrow's new tax law. Tax avoidance and reducing your taxable income are the only legal ways to not pay taxes in the United States. If your clients would like to show their resistance but choose not to use those methods, they still have one more option. They can pay under protest. Your clients may feel free to include protest letters with their tax returns, lobby their government officials, or choose to vote for officials who will lower or eliminate income tax in this country. And unfortunately, that concludes the legal ways of avoiding tax. Let's now switch to the illegal ones. Obviously, there's tax evasion. Under federal tax law of the United States of America, tax evasion or tax fraud is the purposeful, illegal attempt of a taxpayer to evade payment of a tax imposed by the federal government. This is different from tax avoidance. Avoiding tax means telling the truth and using existing tax laws to pay less tax. Tax evasion is where you lie about how much income you made or about the number of expenses you had in order to show lower income and therefore pay less tax. Tax evasion is a crime and could land your clients, and you, if you help them, in jail or give them a lot of fines. But there are those who claim that there's no such thing as tax evasion because the government shouldn't be allowed to collect taxes in the first place. The IRS labels these arguments as frivolous, and Congress places heavy penalties to those that try to use them. What are some of those arguments? Let's talk about a few. Frivolous argument number 1. There is no legal requirement to pay taxes. Unfortunately, there are a couple arguments here. First is some say that the U.S. Constitution doesn't allow for the collection of taxes and thereby the government can't do so. The 16th Amendment begs to differ. It reads, "The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on income from whatever source is derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration." The IRS is the regulatory and enforcement arm of Congress that collects taxes. Another constitutional argument is that the 4th, 5th, and 13th Amendment allows people to wiggle out of paying taxes. Fourth Amendment arguments state that forcing people to disclose income violates a right to privacy. The Fifth Amendment is used by people who say that filing a tax return is akin to self-incrimination. And the 13th Amendment is that, the argument for that is that paying taxes is akin to involuntary servitude. Some people even use the First Amendment right of free speech and religion as arguments for not paying taxes. The United States courts have not sided with these arguments. The courts have consistently held that the disclosure of the type of routine financial information required on a tax return does not incriminate an individual or violate that individual's privacy. Also, courts have consistently found that the First and 13th Amendment do not provide rights to refuse to comply with federal tax law. Let's go to frivolous argument number 2. The tax system is voluntary. Some taxpayers assert that they are not required to file federal income tax returns because the filing of a tax return is voluntary. They say this is because the IRS tells taxpayers in the Form 1040 instruction book that the tax system is voluntary. Additionally, these taxpayers frequently quote a court case from 1960, Flora versus United States, which stated that our system of taxation is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not upon distraint. How does the IRS respond? They say that the word voluntary in this case is talking about empowering taxpayers in determining how much tax is owed, rather than having the government dictate it to them. In other words, the system is voluntary because taxpayers prepare their own returns, rather than the government doing it for them. So let's move on to frivolous argument number 3, wages aren't income. Some argue that wages, tips, and other compensation received for personal services are not income because there is no taxable tangible gain when a person exchanges labor for money. Under this theory, wages are not taxable income because people have basis in their labor equal to the fair market value of the wages they receive. Therefore, it's a zero-sum game. There is nothing to be taxed. Again, the courts don't like this argument. This argument has been consistently dismissed. Congress has determined that all income is taxable unless specifically excluded by some part of the tax code. All compensation for personal services, no matter what the form of payment, must be included in gross income. This includes salary or wages paid in cash, as well as the value of property and other economic benefits received because of services performed, or for services that might be performed in the future. So what happens when you try to make one of these arguments to the IRS at tax time? You get penalized. Not just the usual penalties associated with not filing or paying, but separate, special, expensive penalties aimed at discouraging frivolous attempts to not pay tax. Right off the bat is a $5,000 fine for filing a frivolous argument. Then, to make things uglier, taxpayers filing returns with frivolous positions may be subject to accuracy-related penalties, civil fraud penalties, and erroneous claim for refund penalties. That's a lot of penalties. This video has been part of a tax continuing education course available at www.aardvarktax.com. It's been approved by the IRS and state governing agencies like California CTEC and Oregon's Board of Tax Practitioners. But just viewing this video won't get you credit from your government agencies. Be sure to register for this course or any of our other courses by heading to www.aardvarktax.com, and then we'll report your successful completion to the government agencies once you've finished the course.